Hello, awesome people. I hope you are having just an absolutely magnificent day today. Today we're going to be taking a look at my top 10 horror films from the era from 1900 to 1940. For you folks, this is, if you'll recall, I did my top science fiction films from 3 different eras for top 10s and so forth. I did the classics before 1980. 80s, 90s, and then I did the last century. And then I broke up my top fantasy films. I also did the classics for it too, and prior to 1980. And then I felt the 80s were a little bit deeper dive and so forth. I felt like I missed a lot of good films in the science fiction one because I had done a lot of divisions and so forth, because I just didn't have space. Like, for example, The Creature from the Black Lagoon in the classic one, for example. And so after looking at that, I think we could probably break that up into a little more detail. But fantasy fans, except for the 80s after Conan the Barbarian, for that decade, and the early 2000s for after the Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, there was a lot. There wasn't as deep a dive into it and so forth. So now that we're in the final one, the horror one, for you folks, this one is definitely some stuff that has a lot of classics, just like sci-fi. And I would argue that probably horror is probably the more definitive and well-known genre, if you will, of the 3 that my channel covers for you folks. And so we're going to be taking a look again at from 1900 to 1940 for you folks. This is 10 films, all great films. Lots. 4 of these are in the silent era. Most of those are in the 20s. One of those is just randomly released in the 30s. And then the other 5 are universals after they started to dominate the market and so forth. So those are the 10 films that are hitting this. And I hope you will like it. And so if you, as a reminder, my notes are here on my cell phone in 22-point font. So if you see me looking down and not giving you the eye contact that you deserve, that's the reason why. So I apologize for that up front for that. But let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with number 10. This is The Bride of Frankenstein. It's a sequel. And it's the only sequel on this top 10 list for you folks of Frankenstein, obviously from the 30s and so forth. It's the Universal one. And you'll actually see this. I think this is probably the best sequel of the Universal sequels in this era, because what it does is it really puts this idea on the map in a major way of coming back to these characters, but building off of them, adding to their world buildings and so forth. And here, Frankenstein was a bride and so forth. And in fact, The Bride of Frankenstein, I think, is so classic and so well done that a lot of people actually would probably arguably prefer this to the next one, to Frankenstein, for you folks. And I wouldn't disagree, right, with that. That's their opinions in their list, right? Never everybody's is the same. But I do think it's good enough to make my top 10 list at number 10 for you folks. Number 9 is the random one from 1935 for you folks that I said that wasn't a Universal or a silent film. And this is Werewolf of London. For you folks, the idea here is that they're trying to come up with something a little different for the werewolf concepts in London and so forth. With you folks, I do like what's happening here and so forth. I think it's pretty good stuff. But anyway, the basic core ideas here, I love the makeup here. I think they do a great job with some of the cinematography and so forth, which will be recurring with the Wolfman in the next decade for you folks too. I love it lots. I think the cinematography here's really, really strong too, as well as the world building and so forth. So that's number 35, and this has been regularly remade and so forth, and really is a beloved classic, and I would agree with that. That's number 9, Werewolf of London. All right. So once again, number 8 is The Invisible Man for you folks. This is from 33. It's a Universal Pictures. As a reminder, I also had this in my top sci-fi films because it's a sci-fi by H.G. Wells, and I wouldn't really say that this is a classic. His novel horror stuff. It's just more sci-fi. But I think that Universal does a good job of melding the two, so I would consider this both for you folks. And then, the idea here is that our guy who discovers the formula for invisibility and then takes it, starts to turn towards doing some more darker stuff because nobody can tell that it was him, right? I like that. I think that sort of a psychological fall into horror is really great stuff. All right, that's number 8. Number 7 is The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Lon Chaney, 1923. This is the first silent film for you folks. This is not going to be the last Lon Chaney film you'll have here. He's an absolute classic. He owned the 20s, right? He's a great guy. He really dominated that decade for you folks. And when I saw this on YouTube, which I'll also try to link for you, see if it's still out there, this should be there because the last copyright date should be 1990. It should be 28, and this is a few years earlier. But this is really good stuff, and I really loved it. When I saw it for the first time, I was like, "Wow, that's just an amazing film." That's number 7, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Number 6 is Frankenstein that stars Boris Karloff. This is a bunch of versions in this era. This is the Boris Karloff version. This is what I consider the definitive Frankenstein version. I'm sure you would too. This is from Universal in 1931. This is the same year that a later film that will hit higher up on my list. This really put Universal and Universal stuff on the map in a major way. All up and down. So I think it's good stuff. I really like it lots. And I think that Boris Karloff does a great job here. It's not my favorite Boris Karloff film from the decade. Sorry, Frankenstein fans, but I think it's good stuff. So there we are. That's my top 6. Now on to my top 5. Number 5 is the film I just alluded to. This is The Mummy from 32. It's the next year. Boris Karloff. I love the cinematography here. I love the makeup here. I think it's just an absolute well-done classic for you folks. I think it's just so well done. I love the ideas here. I think he's got a great acting. This is my favorite Boris Karloff part from the decade. So if you prefer Frankenstein or even Bride of Frankenstein, I'm not losing any sleep, right? It's fine, it's your opinion, but I think this is my take on the best one from the era. But that's Boris Karloff's The Mummy for you folks. I love it lots, love it so much. All right, that's my top 5. Now, number 4 is Nosferatu. This is the next silent film for you folks. It's also from the German expressionistic style for you folks. It's from the 22. Just like the first one, in the silent era, this is earlier than the era, so you should be able to find it online. This was a sort of an unofficial retelling of Dracula because they tried to get the rights of it, and then it just didn't work out, and so forth. So I think they added some good stuff to it. It's very fast. You won't miss that much time. It's good stuff. So that is the Nosferatu version, right? Love it lots. That's number 4, and then top 3 times. And now this next one is the one that I already alluded to. It's 1931's Bela Lugosi's. No, not 1931, sorry. Bela Lugosi's Dracula. For folks who are also from the same era, same year as Frankenstein. Absolutely put horror back on the map and Universal on the map in a major way. Made tons of money for them and so forth. I think Bela Lugosi's just an absolute classic there. Love the acting, love the style of the cinematography, love the moody lightings and such. Love it lots. Love the sets. Love it lots, right? So that is number 3 by another back-to-back vampire films with Nosferatu and then Dracula. Dracula is my highest hitting at number 3 non-silent film. So the last 2 I think are absolute classics. Although I think the second one doesn't get the respect it deserves. But if you haven't seen it, see it. And this is the next Lon Chaney film. It's from 1925. I also saw this online too. On YouTube, it's called The Phantom of the Opera. For you folks, this is a telling of the things that we've probably heard about, like from all Frank Lloyd Wrights and stuff like that, and all the musicals and such, right? That have made lots of money and so forth. This is an earlier version of it, starring Lon Chaney. To my mind, this is his best movie I've seen, other than only like 4 or 5. Since many of his films aren't on or silent serials, just aren't available because they got lost in videos and so forth, which is really sad. Love it lots. You should too. If you haven't seen it, I think this is probably a little bit of a kept secret. Once again, The Phantom of the Opera from 1925, starring Lon Chaney. Now, the number 1 film, our final silent film, and if you're guessing, you could probably guess what it's going to be. It's the best German classic. It's The Cabinet of Dr. Cagliari for many folks from the early 20s. I also watched this on YouTube too. I think it'll be there too. I'll try to link to do. It's an absolute classic. The classics. It's got great art. It's got music. It's got such weird and creepy scenery. It's got such a great idea with our main characters. Love it lots. Absolute classics for you folks. Now, that is, once again, the cabinet of Dr. Cagliari for it. No spoilers on any of these 10 films, as a reminder. I know they've been around for almost 100 years in some cases. But again, please no spoilers, because a lot of folks may not have heard of them or watched them, right? Because, right, so forth. So there's my top 10 again. Here they are once again. Number 10, Bride of Frankenstein. Number 9, Werewolf of London. Number 8, The Invisible Man. Number 7, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, starring Lon Chaney. There are a few of those. That's the 1923 version. Number 6 is Frankenstein, 1931, starring Boris Karloff. There are also a few of those. The Mummy, 32. Nosferatu, Dracula from 31. There's a few of those. The Phantom of the Opera, and then The Cabinet of Dr. Cagliari for you folks. So those are my top 10 once again. All right. So as a reminder, in order to make these lists, particularly in my horror genres and so forth, one of the key things I'll look for is atmosphere. How well does it build up suspense and horror over time, right? Right. As I'm not a big fan of jump scares or blood packs and that sort of a thing. I really don't think that modern horror films are anywhere as good as some of the older stuff. You get black and white stuff, right, and so forth. I just don't feel that's the case at all, because they're just cheaper. They just rely on cheaper visual effects or special effects, or right. I don't think that they take the time and the interest to really build up suspense and do it right. Right. None of these films would be rated R, right? None of these would be considered like an adulterer, but although they're probably more adulterer takes, right? None of these would be rated R, but I think all of these are great classics, right? Great stuff. And I think that, this definitely shows, I think, the better sides of horror. That's what all 10 of these films have made my list from the first 40 years of the century for you folks, as well as they're from in that order too, for you folks. So there you are. Have you seen these 10 films? If so, what did you think about them? And then, as a reminder, I just want to know what your top 10 are. Everybody's opinion is different, right? I'm not a film critic. I'm not a trained horror writer. I'm just a fan of the genre. Fantasy and sci-fi too. I try to do a lot of reviews of these things too for you folks, so you can check them out and let them know if you like this. Also, again, the channel's title is The Worst Thing About New Books, and this is about, in this case, the worst. They've kept us from watching some of the old movies that have really been influential, and so the newer movies are novels in this case, and so forth. It's a quote by Jacques Joubert. So if you like this video, why not hit the like button, the bell icon, to be notified of all my videos, the subscribe button, because we'll have another one of these next week, and so forth, like I've done the past few for sci-fi and fantasy films. And then also for the next couple of decades, horror folks, and then also if let your friends know, so horror fans, old fans, silent fans, black and white fans, whatever, film fans, just whatever you got out there, just let them know so they'll watch it, right, and so forth. So anyway, and then finally, I just want to thank you so much, for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my videos, right? Because we all have so many things that are happening, right, in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spend time with me, that's incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it much. So once again, thanks, and have an amazing day.